Believe Jazz Cabbage Cafe has gone.
We're launched.
And launched, and more are coming on board.
Where's our boy Colin?
There he is.
Well, there's our boy Colin.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe. So
I don't see
last
Colin.
show of the year. Well, he's making his way on. He's connecting.
All right.
Last show of 2020.
Yeah.
Right.
So next year hopefully the show's going to be the same, but we're going to add a little production and have a couple of sponsors and be on some additional formats. But I think it's worked out quite well like this. We talk about some interesting stuff. We get some good stuff on record. We have interesting people on, and no reason to fix what ain't broke, but we're going to jazz it up a little bit with some, like at least a beginning and an end, maybe some middle stuff, That would be one of those kind of
a real beginning, end, and middle
parameter type things. Yeah. So, and
Dave just noticed my background. He never noticed it before. He's over on the couch laughing. I said, what?
So it keeps on giving.
It does. It never stops. It's growing all the time.
So, we did a
it keeps on giving. That's hilarious.
Kind of a review of the major news stories and events and things like that of last year. But today's kind of a free-for-all show. We have a few things going on, but maybe some reflection, some more personal things, some things that have happened that you're looking forward to in the next year. I know that I don't typically jump in and get involved in this, but this upcoming year could be really cool as far as I'm concerned. There's a few projects coming up. I got some stuff working with Rick and Ann Ryan. There's some things in motion from the activist side of things with some of the groups and organizations we're involved with that'll be continuing with some legislative action and some other things. I'm going to be involved with the social lounge up in Kalkaska, being part of the coffee service up there, which will be working in conjunction with John Sinclair as he brands it, and proceeds will go to his foundation. There's a John Sinclair Foundation, and there's one in Europe. There's one being put together for here and now, and that's where will be the designation for those things. We're going to open up the third store with Botanical Company, which will be right next door to that social lounge, and keep going from there. Some new prospects are coming up all the time, and just a lot of stuff going on for me. And I'm torn by all the tragedy of this last year, the pandemic, our failed leadership, all of the deaths and illness that were unnecessarily caused, and I know I'm very aware that's a very rough year for a lot of people, and that's not lost on me. I am really looking forward to the future, though. There's a lot of stuff going on, and probably can't even explain it all and all the things happening, but it's all good, and I'm excited about this upcoming year. So, including this show, which will start off with the improvements. Will probably start off with a few glitches, and we'll probably have to work through a few things, but that's how it goes. But looking forward to that too. We'll get a few laughs in there. But anyway, Rick, what do you think?
Well, we were on Medical Mondays last night, a couple of us, Colin and Jamie, myself. We talked about what our most memorable moment of last year, of this current ending year is. And my very first thought was Donald Trump loses. Not Joe Biden wins, Donald Trump loses. So removing Donald Trump from office, although it's not personal to me, it was very personal to me. And after a 2020 where we were completely inundated with nothing but Trump's name in the news day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out, we started with the impeachment. We went through with the whole campaign nonsense. And then after the election, we went through with the whole whiny crybaby bullshit, which we're continuing to deal with. The second biggest moment of 2020 for me, again, not on a personal level, but still personal to me, was Michael Thompson getting commuted. And when you look at both of those incidents, one of them is a cannabis community thing, one of them is not a cannabis community thing. Both of them are the results, in my personal opinion, both of them are the results of a lot of very hard work by people who actually give a shit. And in 2020, sometimes it was difficult to tell who gives a shit and who is just existing, waiting to die. Because there are some people out there who didn't seem like they were really trying hard to help society, to help themselves, and that they were more than happy to drag other people down with them. Entitlement was both on full display during the mask wearing fiasco, and also it was challenged by Black Lives Matter after George Floyd's death, and so many other senseless tragedies that we saw. So in 2021, what I anticipate, a lot of changes for the cannabis community, a lot of them positive. There'll be some that we will disagree about and some that we'll fight about. But we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to capitalize on this new interest in not only activism, but also in things like voting or participating in the system. For a long time, people didn't want to participate in the system for very good reason. The system shit upon those people to the most degree. But 2021, moving forward, more people are engaged. In my personal opinion, America is better when we have more people engaged. The conversations are more robust. People are not excluded. We explore old wounds and discover new healing techniques. And that's what our nation absolutely needs in 2021. And if you look beyond our own borders, that's what the whole planet needs in 2021. If one thing the coronavirus might have done for planet Earth is perhaps made cooperation between nations more important, because in combating the virus, we're going to share our secrets, we're going to share our medicines with people that we may not politically agree with, where we may not ideologically find ourselves aligned. And when we do, we create friends, and we destroy old enmities. Deb Young, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, most of my anxiety this year has been around Trump, surrounding Trump. So yeah, it was quite a massive thing to finally see him defeated. I think it's going to take years to repair the damage he's done. I mean, you're talking about, reaching out to people around the world. For the past 4 years, America's been telling people around the world to go fuck themselves. That, we're in it for ourselves. So it's going to take a lot to get past that.
And that's the message of America First. America First to us sounds great, but to the rest of the world sounds like this.
America First does not sound great. That's not what America's about. We've always, that's not. So I don't know. What I'm looking forward to 2021, I'm hoping that finally we'll get it either descheduling or decrim or legalization on a federal level. There's been a lot of talk about it. Is it going to happen in the first year? Probably not. It might not even happen in the first 4 years, but hey, it's something to even think about because it's a possibility. They publicly spoke it. The candidates publicly spoke about it. It's the first time ever that we've heard that, where the actual, president-elect says he's going to do it, and the vice president-elect that claims that she's behind it too. So I'm anxious to see that. That would be great. On a personal level, I've got 3 new strains in my caregiver grow, so that's exciting. We just harvested those. So in about 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be checking that out. I haven't infused any new blood into the grow in about 5 years, so this is very exciting.
Well, I will say that.
And besides that, just trying to keep engaged and trying to just keep going, trying to be positive. I think it's amazing. It seems like the entire world is going to get vaccinated on something that we just discovered, 10 months ago. That is really incredible that they rolled that out really fast. So, there's a lot of amazing things going on, even in the shit show that was Trump. There's still some amazing things that are happening. And it's just mind-boggling, some of the stuff.
Many people on this show need to know what those new strains are all about as well.
Well, they will. Everybody will have a sampling. I mean, but they're not ready yet. We don't want to sample. Otherwise, it'll taste like we're smoking hemp. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to wait till it's cured.
No offense to the people who are putting out big quality hemp.
Love my hemp
people.
Yeah.
A lot of people putting out quality. Unfortunately, I haven't had any to enjoy.
They're out there. I hear about them.
Yeah.
One of these days.
Deb mentioned. Go ahead, Deb.
No, I was just going to say, so we like to put a good, 30-day cure on it. It's been in the jar a few days, about a week now. So yeah, we'll all have some samples.
Deb mentioned some of the things that happened congressionally. The MORE Act although it was only passed by the House and not taken up by the Senate, it's actually a House of Congress that said cannabis should be removed from the schedule of controlled substances. And it's the first time ever that's happened. It's the first time ever we've had a vote of this magnitude at this level. It is significant. Jim Salame, thank you for joining us today and for all of 2020. Your presence is much appreciated. What do you think about a reflection of this past year and perhaps optimism towards the year forward?
Well, I'm so happy to be here. So it's been a great year, just enjoying all this and taking news with you guys and all the little things we do, whether it be for the government or for the entire cause of cannabis. This past year, I think, that there's an old prayer like, help me control the things I can and understand the things I can't control. And I think that's really something to look at for the entire year as far as a mantra. I found, patience through this year, myself personally. I think as a country, we've definitely exposed a lot of things that we need to know about, that we need to see as far as who we really are as a nation, so we can correct things and go forward with that. As a globe, like Rick was saying, I mean, having like global camaraderie is really important, and with leadership. For the next year coming up, I'm really excited about, well, before I go on to next year, I have to say, having entheogens in the city of Ann Arbor, if not entire county of Washtenaw, happen this year was really incredible. Having cannabis become what's the word I'm looking for?
Essential business.
Essential. Thank you very much for that.
Which is what I brought up on Medical Mondays last night, because that really brought me through the year personally.
Yeah, and that's just a good feeling overall. And then for next year, guys, I think we're looking at just, keeping some of the laws from changing so it benefits, everyone involved in our industry. Looking at psilocybin and other forms of plant medicines that can help people and moving that movement. I'm excited about the podcast we're doing called The Entheo Show that debuts January 8th. Gosh, I'm just so happy that you figure out the great people out there, and it's like somebody was saying earlier, like who's working and who's doing stuff to help people and who's just sitting on their butts. And I'm just so glad to be part of the group that I'm with. And I can't hold a candle to most of you guys, but I'm really glad to be part of this whole thing.
One of the biggest secrets to a success as an advocate, and I know we don't always talk about it, is the people that you choose to surround yourself with. I mean, you can try and be an armchair advocate and sit in a circle with everybody else, burn joints and complain about the world, or you can be a sign-carrying advocate and you can actually be out there in the world and bitch about things in public. And, we've been able to bitch about things in public pretty well. The cannabis industry has had media's ear for quite a while. And now that entheogens are becoming more popular to use, and also the decrim is becoming successful, I think entheogens and entheogenic substances are likely to get that same kind of coverage, or at least similar coverage to what cannabis did in its early days. Colin, you and Jim were involved in that effort to decriminalize entheogenic substances in Ann Arbor, and kudos to you, a 2020 highlight to be sure. What do you think about reflections and progressions?
It's great that we were able to pull something off in 2020 through the city council. I was really amazed to see it happen. I was surprised to see it on the agenda. I was surprised when they were discussing it, and the one person I thought would be against it for sure was talking herself into being a yes vote, and I thought that was really cool, and one of those moments where I was texting back with the whole DNA 2 group, is this really happening? Is this going on? So I mean, that was really awesome. We were able to get that done in quarantine, and we were really one of the only city outside California or Denver, Colorado at the time. We were the easternmost, and it was before Washington DC was able to vote on it. So that's always cool to put our home on the map. And
you bring up a good point there, Colin, because the city council members it appears from the discussions we've had with you guys and with Julie and everybody, it appears they actually considered the information and weighed it out and logically kind of vetted through it and decided, hey, you guys are right. There is really no reason why we shouldn't be doing this stuff here. And that is rare to see. Usually it's purely political. Even now with people who are in support of us, there's still this huge political weight of cannabis that exists in decision making, and it's not as like straightforward as that. And good for Ann Arbor comes through in that regard historically.
Yeah.
But great job, you guys, giving the proper information for them to consider.
Yeah, and I know on Medical Mondays we talked about Rick. You said like when that Saturday when it was announced that Donald Trump had lost the election. I remember feel like one of those moments. It was like I woke up at like 6 a.m. or something, and it was like Georgia and Pennsylvania, like they're not, Biden's now ahead, and it was just like, okay, I can go back to sleep and like calm down a little. I'll wake up around 10 and it was like all over the news. So that was a really, that's how I remember that moment at least. And like it was just all my Facebook was like Stacey Abrams and like Pennsylvania. So
that really was part of the American experience for the entire 2020 is riding the Trump train as far as media exposure and everything else too. He, for all of his faults, the one thing he did do was dominate the news cycle in a way that other presidents were never able to do. He did it through bombastic methodology and by being a complete buffoon, so I'm not encouraging that, but he had his name on the lips of the first story of every news reporter's broadcast. I mean,
He's still got us on the crazy train. He's still got us on this crazy train. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on.
yeah, I mean all those pardons.
Yeah, the pardons and all the weirdness involved with him and the $2,000 stimulus that he didn't want to endorse before. Now he does.
That's right.
Those are pardons of all people who have been unjustly imprisoned.
Did you hear what Jared Kushner's
and they have nothing to do with anybody's connected to Trump.
No, I did not, Deb.
He set up one of his partners with a prostitute and pictures of him with a prostitute, and then sent the pictures to the dude's wife.
Oh,
in some kind of an extortion plan. Yeah, that's what he got pardoned for. And believe it or not, I saw it was Chris Christie, I guess, prosecuted the case as the prosecuting attorney when it came down.
There was this tension between
the most disgusting thing he'd ever seen. He said it was the most disgusting case he ever prosecuted.
There was this tension between the Kushner family and Chris Christie in the beginning of this whole thing. That obviously was I never really knew what the basis of it was, but
I think I saw a documentary on Ian Kushner and or what's his name, Jared Kushner, and they talked about that case.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
These are the most reprehensible people. I mean, really, some of the folks that are able to rise to the upper crust in the New York real estate world, and not just real estate, but
if you had that kind of money, wouldn't you just go chill somewhere and lay low and have some fun and relax instead of fucking with people all the time? What's the point? Throw some goodwill out there instead of taking pictures of your business partners and sending it to their wives and stuff. What the hell?
Yeah, 2020 is just changing that last.
He was simultaneously writing a script for a made-for-TV movie that he was hoping that Donald.
About the same damn thing. But
Jim, what are you saying? Hang on, Jamie. Jim?
I was just saying that 2020 is just changing one number, and it's 2021, and things are still like very, very on edge, and we have to still be on guard. And we have to watch the election and what's going on. And Georgia's still a big thing with what's going on with the Senate races down there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we keep our focus on that because there are a lot of people, I recommend if you can give $5 or $10 to that campaign, somehow find a way to give, do it.
It's going to change. If they win, if the Democrats win, it's going to make such a big difference. If not, we're still in the same shithole.
Pretty much. Hey, we got Roach joining us, obviously, to weigh in a little bit on this. We got some other people popping on.
He's quiet.
Roach, thanks for joining the broadcast. We were on your show last night, and we talked a little bit about 2020 reflections and 2021 projections. That's what we've sort of been kicking around here this morning. Why don't you go ahead and toss yours in real quick before we switch to our guest?
Well, yeah, man. Much like I said last night, man. I'm not gonna focus on the negative. I'm gonna look at the positive things. That in all of this chaos and uncertainty, it has definitely brought out the best in people, and it's kind of evident. Also, I guess my favorite kind of occurrence thing that happened is the homie Chef Anna with the pot going out there and protesting with the potted cannabis plants and doing all the skits in front of the cops and having the cop going up to the state boys and asking if they could hold his pot while he tied his shoes and stuff. I thought that was like so fucking cool. So big shout out to Chef Anna with the pot, taking a bad situation and doing something positive with it and making us smile in the process.
Roach, where can we find that video if we wanted to check that out? Because I really do.
Oh, Chef Anna with the pot on Instagram. I think he's on Facebook too. I know he does Twitch stream. He's everywhere just like us. We're probably gonna have him on the show pretty soon coming up. So stay tuned.
Happy 420.
Happy 420, everybody. And speaking of 420, welcome Mike Fisher to the broadcast, sir.
Thanks.
So everybody probably here anyway. I don't know how long ago it was now, a few months ago, we had Mike on, talked about cultivation, some stuff in the industry, but also a lot of, home cultivation things. It turned into a really interesting conversation. It went on for a while. And those types of things aren't as common. So in this next year, we're going to hopefully have Mike on a somewhat regular basis and, talk about cultivation issues for like a segment once a month or so or something along those lines. And his company, and just to make sure I get it right, you should say it's Overgrow.
Yep.
Yep, and does consulting and all types of stuff like that. We'll talk about that also. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And just we're gonna have a few people joining us today to offer up their reflections and talk about what's going on. And looks like you're up because you just joined us.
So, Mike, we have been kicking around the group today, just reflections about 2020, the high points, things you will take away from it and recall, and then also your projections for 2021. What kind of optimism do we have? What type of hesitations do we have going into the new year?
Oh, for me personally, I mean, I stayed pretty active throughout 2020, and it really was a time of kind of, like for many people, seeing what's important, but then also it was a good impetus to make some changes and move forward on some things and fight some battles that I might not otherwise have gone through. And so I'm very sensitive to all the bad things that are going on right now, but for me, it was really motivating, and I see it as something that, hopefully open up some space for some good things to happen.
We've been joined by my own personal rocket man, Gus Rosania, professor from the University of Michigan. Last time you were on, we had such an incredible conversation about taking cannabis to Mars and maybe shipping cannabis to Mars before we get there to have things ready. It was fascinating. I'm certainly looking forward to that too. But we'd also like to welcome Rachel and Nick. Also, thank you. Thanks for joining our broadcast today as well. Gus, we've just been sort of kicking around 2020 high points, low points, and then also a look forward at 2021. Professor, what could you add to the conversation there?
So let's see. Hi, everybody. So I think everything that's been said is great. I think I agree with everybody. I just want to add to that the USDA certification of Michigan's MDART hemp program, which now makes it legal at a federal level, and that would allow us to grow hemp, process hemp, and import, export, apply for farmers insurance, assuming the bureaucracy gets lubricated soon enough. That's what that means. So the USDA certification of the hemp program, MDART hemp program, is, I think, very important. It's not realized yet because there's a lot of bureaucracy, that needs to be dealt with. Hopefully, the likes of Jeff Irwin, our politicians, will get the bureaucracy lubricated, and then we're going to begin to see some excitement there on the hemp.
Well, I do not want to be the guy wearing the rubber glove when bureaucracy gets lubricated. I'm just going to put that out there right off the bat.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was gonna say.
I knew
sounds
I
a
had to
little
beat Deb or Jamie to the
Yeah.
sharp comment on that.
I don't even think like that. I do happen to know, since you haven't gotten to it yet, we have the interim director from Students for Sensible Drug Policy with us, with Nick there.
Oh, there's
Yep.
Ryan
He is.
Basore back there.
Brian Basore is creepily peering over Jim's shoulder, watching his computer. Don't do that to another guy, man. That's
I always
not-
wonder, Ryan hangs out over at Jim's when he's not anywhere else. Now I get it.
Oh, what's
He's here for every
Oh.
show. This is just the first time you guys have actually seen him.
He
Right.
often says he's
Lurch
going
is
to the
looking
gym.
around.
I didn't realize he was going to gyms when he was.
Well, let's get Ryan's response real quick on this, since he's there. He's now committed himself to being a part of the show.
Okay. So, Mr. Basore, real quickly here, we're talking about High Points 2020, and then also look forward. What's your anticipation for 2021?
As far as in cannabis in general in Michigan, criminal justice reform.
Feel free to interpret as you will, because you have so many irons in the fire. You have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different things going on.
Yeah, I would say for criminal justice reform, I'm really hoping the work that was all done, by a lot of people on the Michael Thompson case, all the good, I guess, comments and goodwill from bipartisan that the governor got for that. I hope that spurs on, starts the momentum of what's to come. There's a lot of people on both sides of the aisle and lobbyists that I know, pretty high-powered ones, donating their time to work on criminal justice and stepping it up. Some pretty cool stuff going on. So I see that picking up big time in Michigan. It's a win-win for anybody to do it. And then as far as the market in Michigan, I see the black market being the illicit market or gray market, black market, whatever you want to call it, being affected not by raids or by capping licenses. I see it starting to get affected by prices coming down. In Lansing, there's a really good rec 8s for $35 right now. I see that going down in the future down to 25, good quality, and that's gonna start affecting the black market a little bit. That's the only way you address it, as we know, and that's kind of exciting because it gives people choices. And then I see this is the year for the rest of the market, the regulated market, where brands kind of get into stores, make their mark, kind of get the supply chain going, and after this year, I see it be a lot tougher to get into Michigan. I also see it being a great year I see some implosions happening on some companies we know about. I really believe that's going to happen. I'm seeing empty parking lots in Lansing. I drive by every day, and then I see full ones in other stores. And how long can that be maintained is the question I'm asking. So that's what I think is going to happen 2021. I'm super excited about 2021. Super excited about it.
I think there's a lot of us that are really looking forward to optimism. Rachel, would you please answer our oft-asked question? What about your look back and your look forward as well?
Yeah, I think one of the highest points in 2020 was the UN finally voting to decide to deschedule cannabis from Schedule 4 of the 1961 drug conventions. That's really huge. It's the United Nations is finally recognizing that cannabis does have medicinal benefits, and while nations are going to have to reform their own drug laws, right? Because this is not like a global law. It will become easier for millions of patients to access additional cannabis around the world. So
people should know that their drug 4 schedule is equivalent to our drug 1 schedule. Ours is reversed from theirs. So when we say Schedule 4, that is the worst status it could have held. Yes.
Yeah. So that's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to 2021. I believe that cannabis will be decriminalized at the federal level. I'm in the United States. I'm very hopeful for that, and we'll certainly see more and more states legalize, and hopefully more states choose to decriminalize possession of personal possession of drugs. So I'm very looking forward. 2020 was like a really fantastic year for drug policy reform, in spite of all of the challenges of the pandemic and changes in the way organizing happens. But it really was an excellent year, and I'm very optimistic about 2021.
I want to say that that makes me pretty excited because I'm actually down here in Washington, D.C. And of course, Rachel's interim director of Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which is a D.C. nonprofit. But that's just nice to know someone with their finger on the pulse of the federal level, you know, saying something like that. It definitely.
And I wanted to ask you, Rachel, since you said that, you prompted the question, even if we are not successful in winning both seats in Georgia, you still think there's going to be decriminalization in this upcoming legislature, or do you think that the executive branch will make it lowest level priority or something along those lines? How do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah, so the more acts passing the Senate certainly hinges on the Georgia runoff races, which are very tight. I'm optimistic that like at least one of them will go to the Democrats, but I would like to hold the Biden administration to their promise that marijuana will be decriminalized. And so I'd like to see the executive branch take some kind of action on, making it, lowest level priority.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for all the work you do. Oftentimes here on a statewide level, we have an outsider's perspective of what's going on federally, but you're inside the window and we're on the outside. So we appreciate you lending your guidance. Nick, what about you? You have had your foot in many different doors this last year, as far as federally as also state-based in the industry, and then as an observer. What do you think of when you think of 2020? What stands out in your mind?
Well, there's a lot. I'm actually gonna take a little bit of a different route than Rachel, and this may have been said already. I know a lot has probably been said, but maybe it's certainly tangible in a lot of states, and had a pretty huge impact on the longevity of the industry and a lot of the businesses, but also just very symbolically, I think it's incredibly important that cannabis was labeled as a essential service. So I don't know if that had been mentioned and discussed, in the 15 minutes prior to us hopping on, but it definitely, to me, really, sets in stone that cannabis is here to stay as a business, as a commodity, as a medicine, and that the people want it. And also knowing that we have a legislature in Michigan and in a handful of other states that recognize its importance and recognize that it shouldn't be something that it shouldn't be thrown out. It is, access is what we've really been fighting for a long time. So to have access and reliable access actually acknowledged was just huge, I think.
And several states came to that conclusion, not just Michigan. Several states labeled it as an essential service.
Yeah, here in DC too, they labeled it as an essential service.
Well, yeah, in D.C., shit, you got Trump in White House. You got to have something to chill out with. God,
not right now. He's in Mar-a-Lago. That's why I'm here.
I thought the Floridians said don't come to our state anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
Rick you and I discussed this just a little earlier. If it's essential services, does that mean that the workers, the employees of the dispensaries, caregivers who are considered essential, are we going to be considered essential workers when it comes to the vaccination schedule, or not?
Well, I heard that they're going to be vaccinating grocery store workers and people that they've asked to stay open. So I don't understand why there would be a differentiation between that level of essentialness and our level of essentialness.
That's what I'm asking. I'm wondering.
I would agree. I know right now it's frontline workers is the phase 1A is frontline workers and residents of long-term care facilities. But yeah, once it just
essential. I think 1B or C says essential workers, which is teachers and people working in grocery stores and people working in dispensaries, people working in the greenhouses. Come on,
You don't
at our stores.
You don't want to be first in line for the vaccine, okay?
I want to be first in line, so you're gonna have to fight me for it, Gus. Come on.
Gus says it's like the first year of a new car. You want to let it go through and let it shake out all of the rust.
He doesn't.
And the people who have pre-existing conditions, I think healthcare providers, the ones who are dealing with patients one-on-one, who have great risk of spreading the disease. So those are the ones you want to vaccinate first, and the elderly people. But the dispensary workers, so right now they're working on a drive-through. I think I mean, that's what I've seen in Ann Arbor.
A lot of lobbies are open, but curbside is what's.
Yeah, curbside. So, I
hey,
think,
Gus, would you, since because you are from the College of Pharmacy, University of Michigan, a lot of people are concerned about the vaccine. A lot of people are concerned about how fast it was developed and many other considerations. Can you just talk about what you know from your expert position on this?
It is a very serious concern. The approval of the EUA, which is Emergency Use Authorization, by the way, that doesn't mean that it's for emergency use. That just means that it was approved really quickly as an emergency measure. The whole clinical trial was rushed through a 3-week period. Typically, vaccines are approved after a 2-year testing period, and then they go on into a gradual scale up to the whole of humanity over a 10-year period. So we're going from 3 weeks to the whole of humanity, bam, and that's something that's never seen. So another thing that's never been seen before is the fact that we're vaccinating in the middle of an epidemic or a pandemic. And that means that people are gonna come to the hospital now to get vaccinated at a time where hospitals are gonna be full of people who are sick. And that's something that's never been done before, and I don't know how that's going to play out. But certainly a 3-week testing period for a vaccine is not long enough to see all the long-term side effects that you'd expect to see whenever it is that you put some new drug out there that people begin to inject. So I would be a little bit careful. Now the FDA is now setting up an adverse reporting system precisely to let physicians feed input, into the database that they're putting together in terms of adverse drug reactions as they're occurring in the population, which is all very good. And I would just wait for that database to be filled up a little bit before healthy people, and especially young people. So if you're healthy, you're young, your risk of hospitalization is very, very low. If you're older, elderly, and then you have, the other conditions that predispose you to hospitalization, the risk goes way higher. So I would take a more measured approach in terms of, who should be vaccinated first. And I would actually advocate for gathering data as we're vaccinating people. So just be a little bit cautious. And
realize this is the plot line for about 50% of the zombie apocalypse novels, right?
Yeah. I mean,
everybody gets inoculated with something based on an emergency measure, and then.
So what you're saying is that everybody should get the shot, and everybody's going to be okay.
Everybody but me.
Sorry, you all can watch how it affects me, because I'm going to be the first. The minute I can get it, I'm going to be up in there and getting it, man. I've been in the house for 10 months. Come on.
But it's valid. I'm sort of joking, but it's a valid concern, because one of the things that fuels people's distrust in vaccines is some of the popular culture things that we've seen about this, and they've been told that oftentimes injections lead to infections based on fiction that they've read, seen, or been fed through the media devices that we utilize. And then, of course, we've had the internet, which has amplified some of the concerns people have about vaccines and their relation to autism, things of that nature. So people are naturally concerned. And then take on top of it the liar in chief who pushed this whole thing through, and who's the one primarily saying, let's get this done. People that are hesitant because it's a Trump product as well.
This is being developed all over the world too. We're not in a little bubble here in the
that
US.
doesn't mean anything.
There's vaccines everywhere in the world, So.
No, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's history has taught us that we need to be careful about any time there's a new drug. And by the way, this is not a vaccine yet. This is actually an experimental approach towards getting a vaccine. It hasn't been actually demonstrated that it confers long-term immunity. It's only been shown to confer immunity over the 3-week period through which it was tested, okay? So beyond those 3 weeks, you don't know if you're gonna be immune. Okay?
Right, so Gus, do you know what the how common it is if something like this works over a 3-week period?
No, we don't know that.
Is that any kind of a significant sign?
This is a completely new vaccine technology. I mean, I don't even want to call it a vaccine. This is a completely new technology with a synthetic, it's not even an antigen, it's a synthetic
You're talking about the messenger RNA technology?
Yes,
the
messenger
mRNA?
RNA. This is all new stuff. Okay, it's a synthetic construct that they're putting into the body, and they're hoping or they're thinking that the way it acts is by generating the antigen, which is a protein or peptide antigen, which is ultimately what the immune system is supposed to recognize. We don't know whether this is going to last long enough beyond those 3 weeks. We don't know if the response of the body when it gets the booster after those 3 weeks is going to be, like quite catastrophic. I mean,
to be clear, Gus, one is
Still
synthetic.
taking it.
The Pfizer one is synthetic, and then the Moderna one is non-synthetic. Is that correct?
No, the Moderna one is also, I believe, I don't know the details about the Moderna one, but it's also synthetic. It's just not as synthetic as Pfizer's, but I just,
There's
the
also
thing is,
AstraZeneca has one too.
so,
What does
yeah,
that
that's,
one?
Yeah, I can't
Well,
remember which way it
that's
goes, but I
biologics.
believe Pfizer bought the one from Moderna licensed Pfizer's version. So it was just an untested patent on this vaccine.
Look,
And
the,
they
the,
purchased
the,
it.
the RNA technology is all new technology, and we just don't know beyond those 3 weeks what's going to happen, period. I mean, we just don't know, okay? So your guess that you're going to be protected after 3 weeks is your guess. I mean, do you think it's going to be a vaccine that's going to protect you after 3 weeks? You're guessing that. What's going to happen after 3 weeks? Could it get like a worse inflammatory response? We don't know. I mean, we just don't know. You have to go by the science. I'm a scientist. I'm a pharmaceutical scientist. I'm in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, so I have to stand for what I know. And what I know is that the science just can't go beyond those 3 weeks
Professor,
that we're used to gather the data.
Professor,
So,
I read a Facebook post that you made that said you'd read over the Pfizer data and you were concerned that there wasn't any evidence that some minority groups might be equally protected. Would that be correct?
So yeah, that's that. Thank you, Rick. So when the vaccine was being discussed, I was at the Zoom meeting, which was public, and the reviewers were discussing the vaccine. That this was one of the points that was raised by the reviewers, that there was no data that the minority groups that were presumably at greatest risk of being hospitalized and dying from the disease were being protected by the vaccine. These are the elderly African Americans, the elderly Hispanics, and the elderly Native Americans. And there was just not enough data in that group of people based on who had got sick during those 3 week periods to figure out whether the vaccine was actually working in those groups or not. And when the EUA was voted on by the panel, by the review panel, 3 reviewers voted against the EUA, so against it moving forward. Okay, 3 reviewers. It was not unanimous. Okay, and for a brand new technology to have 3 reviewers voting against it, in my opinion, is very concerning, especially because you're going to give this vaccine to the whole world as it's being done right now. Okay, so if it was going to be scaled up to the point where we're going to be finding out what's going on before we give it to everybody, okay, then I would say, well, I'd be a lot more, cautiously optimistic. Okay, but right now, with 3 reviewers voting against it, voting no for its approval, I'm like very cautious. I just want to see what's going to happen before I even consider injecting it. And I'm personally, I think in over the next 2 years, I mean, I'm going to wait for 2 years, which was the original clinical trials goal, was to figure out what the outcomes would be after 2 years. So I'm planning on waiting 2 years, and by the end of those 2 years, I think I'm just going to get COVID just because it's going to be everywhere. Okay, so I won't even have to worry about the vaccine at that point. That's my own, bias. That's my bias.
What if the university says we require a vaccine certification in order for you to teach in person? Would that change your mind as to receiving a vaccine ahead of time?
I don't know if they can do it. I mean, I don't know if they can do it. I would have to.
Yeah, they can. Michigan's
Oh, yeah,
no.
There's definitely discussion of like venues, of like.
Well, then I'm gonna say you're gonna have to approve my hemp research program, which is legal.
Gus says, "I'll just work in this barn, okay? I don't have to integrate with everybody else. I'll do my thing."
I'm gonna need a lot of CBD to deal with that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
EHC.
well, you know, let me
I got a quick question,
Go
if
ahead,
I
Roach.
could. So this vaccine, is it in any way effective against the new strain that's been found in Europe?
I don't know. I haven't. Some people I've heard that maybe. I've heard that maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, if anything, just to further your point, you know, there's that new strain in, you know, like I want to say parts of London and the surrounding area that's like 70% more infectious and like a variation on the original strain.
Yeah.
So
It was discovered there, but it's here by now.
point
Yeah,
to be
it's in
immune to
Canada
the
too.
original
They were
strain.
saying, and
If
I,
there's a whole second thing that's even worse.
Yeah, we don't know that. And the thing is that, you know, when in the trial there were 20,000 patients that were recruited for vaccine, 20,000 for placebo. So there were 40,000 patients total. This is the Pfizer vaccine. And then out of those 40,000 patients, only a small percentage actually got sick. And once enough people got sick, that would allow the investigators to tell whether or not it was being more effective in the vaccine group versus the placebo group. Then they went ahead and they asked for this EUA expedited approval. But you know, they just got enough people sick out of the 20,000 to know that there was enough of a difference in terms of, say, COVID hospitalizations, which is ultimately the important outcome, because you know, whether or not you have antibodies, that doesn't mean that you're truly protected or not. You know, what really makes it is whether you're getting sick, whether those antibodies are keeping you from getting sick. So once they saw that difference, they went for the approval. Now, the interesting thing is that when they look at hospitalizations, they only compared the COVID-related hospitalizations, but they actually don't report the overall hospitalizations, okay? And that's a real concern of mine, because if you look at, say, something like appendicitis, there were 8 cases of appendicitis in the vaccine group versus 4 cases in the placebo. And presumably, if you get appendicitis, you're gonna be hospitalized, okay? So at that point, your hospitalization numbers, if you look at total hospitalization, they don't start looking as good. So whereas if it's COVID hospitalization, it's 9 in the placebo group versus 1 in the vaccine group. But then if you start incorporating the appendicitis and you think, oh, appendicitis involves hospitalization, then that difference, that benefit in terms of hospitalization no longer looks that good. And I don't know what else in that trial, what other side effect or condition require hospitalization. So is it actually going to reduce hospitalization? I am not that sure, but what I do know is that when you're going to vaccinate 8 billion human beings with a vaccine that's potentially inducing an anaphylactic shock, you're going to be asking the vaccine to come into a doctor's office that have resuscitation equipment, and generally that's a hospital. Okay, so just by the fact that you're vaccinating in the middle of a pandemic, you're going to be bringing people into a hospital that you probably wouldn't be bringing. So in terms of what the hospitalization difference, whether you're vaccinated and not vaccinating, actually means, I'm not sure what it means. I'm just not sure.
All right, so Gus, though, would you handle this any different under the circumstances? Just given the totality of the emergency, you know.
I would take a measured approach. Like I said, you know, the people at risk, you know, you first vaccinate the people at greatest risk.
But you would still get the vaccine out fast and all this. You'd still get the vaccine out with 3 weeks of study, and then
yes. So this is
better, maybe. Okay.
You know, like I'm not going to go back in the past, because that's, you know, there's no point. I mean, there's no point to that, right? So we just move ahead, because it's a done business. Okay, it's done. So what we need to do right now is we need to vaccinate the people at greatest risk, okay? And then we need to start looking at total hospitalizations. I mean, the ultimate outcomes, it's not about whether or not you have antibodies. It's not about whether or not you're getting sick of COVID or not. It's just whether or not this vaccine has an ultimate benefit, okay? And that ultimate benefit is measured in terms of whether people are going to the hospital more or to the hospital less. Okay, and that's what you want to know. And it doesn't matter whether they're going to the hospital because of COVID, because of appendicitis, because of a rash that they suddenly develop and they can't explain how they got it, or because their hay fever is so bad that they just have to go to the emergency room. It doesn't matter. So you just have to look at hospitalizations in the context of what this vaccine is doing. And I would say, first, let's vaccinate the people who really, really need it. And these are the people who are very sick in hospitals from some other, pre-existing condition like diabetes, obesity, hypertension, heart conditions, cancer, or we also vaccinate the healthcare providers that are in immediate contact with the patients. And you don't want those people spreading the virus from one patient to themselves and then to a different patient. And that's what generally happens. Okay, so when you have a hospital, you have doctors and nurses interacting with many different patients at once, and they breathe in the virus from one patient and they breathe it out into another patient. And you don't want that. So those doctors need to be protected. Okay, other than that, you just keep track of the numbers, keep track of hospitalization, adverse events, COVID-related conditions, and then you make decisions as you move forward. So just don't rush it. Get the information, But hey, like we've been winging it in this pandemic from the beginning, right? From day zero, we've been winging it. So
Rick, it seems like that comes with the program. Go ahead, Berg. I'm sorry.
Now, Rick stated earlier about, having to take the vaccine to go to college and stuff. Well, there's going to be employers that are going to fucking want people to, take the vaccine.
All types of things, events, concerts. Just talking that type of thing.
And they're legally covered to enforce that on their employees to remain employed at said business.
Yeah, so I think this is where people like myself comes in, where we have different ways of looking at things. Obviously I'm very much pro cannabis and, pro sacred plant medicine, bringing them back into our pharmacopoeia. I also have a very different way of looking at this vaccine and everything that we're doing in regulation. And this is where people like me come in. So if I'm at the university and I'm suddenly being forced to be vaccinated in order to teach, they're going to hear about me, I'm staying quiet right now, right? I'm just, I'm keeping quiet about the vaccine and just say, I'll play along with it. I think they're doing it fine. But if they suddenly start forcing people without having enough data to support this, this notion that actually making people take the vaccine is actually going to lead to better healthcare outcomes overall, not just COVID related, but overall, I'm going to start becoming increasingly vocal. And, that's just my role as a faculty member. I think about things, and then to the extent that I'm not working in COVID related research right now, I stay quiet, but if they suddenly start forcing COVID vaccines on me, then I'm going to be forced into the conversation. That's not a position I want to be in, honestly, because I would much rather advocate for plants and fungi. So that's my real, I think that's what's going to ultimately change healthcare, period. So, that's going to make the whole difference. I'm not going to waste time with the vaccine. But if they start bringing the vaccine as something that you have to do for employment, I'm not going to just stay quiet. So I'm going to become vocal.
It'll be really interesting to see how these things unfold. This is very weird stuff going on right now. Since Rachel joined us and is in Washington D.C. as director of Students for Sensible Drug Policy, please let us know any current information that we must be aware of, projects you guys are working on, focus right now.
Oh yeah, so we're just finishing up our multi-year plan. So we're actually going to be planning ahead for the next few years, and we'll be releasing that soon. And in the spring, we'll be gearing up for our annual conference. We held it virtually last year. We actually successfully transitioned from an in-person to a virtual because the conference went on around the time things shut down. So we'll be working on our virtual conference in the spring, which will be really awesome. And it's open to anybody who's interested in attending. It's like 3 days of really awesome educational content, panels, workshops with folks from all over the globe. Yeah, so that's what we're working on next. Also looking more into supporting drug decriminalization initiatives across the United States, cannabis legalization nationally in the UK, Ireland, as well as in West Africa. And yeah, that's like, you know, some of the work that we have in store. So we are at our end of the year. Our generous esteemed trustees are matching up to $55,000 in donations made to SSDP. So any gift made before December 31st will be doubled. And if you make a gift of over $25, you'll be entered to win a dip device every starter pack. So if you'd like to get in every starter pack, make a gift of $25, and thank you to Dip Devices for doing that for us. So yeah.
Rachel, this has been really the year of absentee education. We've seen things like University of Michigan essentially become University of Phoenix. For a group of advocates like yourself who's basically dependent upon collegiate students, that's your focus, that must have offered incredible challenges to you. How did you handle it in 2020, and how are you planning on handling it in 2021?
Yeah, so our students are very resourceful and have reinvented organizing, like doing all kinds of digital organizing and outreach that way, holding virtual chapter meetings. That's been really awesome to see our chapter members step up and still get the work done without having to be doing face-to-face organizing. Yeah, we're really impressed. And also we're a global organization as well. So, outside of the United States, like in Europe, where the pandemic has been managed differently, that there weren't as many obstacles for our students in Europe to get together and organize in person. So it was largely a challenge for our students in the U.S.
So Rachel, I just want to ask you, what's going to happen with online education now that students have been practically a whole year, with online everything, and I don't know, hopefully they realize they actually don't have to come to class anymore. They can just party and and watch lectures online. It's like, I mean, is there any hope really for universities, or what's going to happen?
Well, I definitely think that the university will certainly be changing. I can see a lot more, online education work happening, which is like actually really convenient for students who are doing alternative path towards their degree. People who are already professionals, people who didn't go to college when they were young. I think it's like actually online education is like much more equitable. I actually think that moving things online is actually really great. Certainly college students at this time are not getting that, community bonding experience, like going away from home for the first time, being with people your age, being in academic institution and, being exposed to all that knowledge and having it be like, a communal experience. Like, I think that certainly there's a lot to be missed, but I think that online education is more equitable. So I am excited to see that being more happening more often. Yeah, so I actually I'm kind of excited about that. I want things to go back to normal. Obviously, I very much miss and I could, I loved the experience of being in a class in college with people my age, doing extracurricular activities, being at my SSDP chapter meetings when I was a student at SUNY New Paltz, and being the chapter leader there at SSDP, and that was a really phenomenal experience, and certainly I miss that, but I do think there are some positives towards online education. I don't think it's the decline of the university or anything like that.
I'll say that in high school level, there's been a focus on non-traditional educational options, virtual high school, things like that. The programs have been expanded in Flint. My son attended one in Warren as well. So we're seeing nowadays a move towards educational options that, I mean, really, the pathway was unshakable for many, many, many years, and the traditions of teaching involved in-person classrooms with teacher in front and students spread around. Now things we're looking at a different, almost a revolution sort of in the way that we view education in the United States of America. Perhaps overdue, or also maybe perhaps overreach. Who's to say?
Yeah.
I think this may make possible one of these burning streams of free university education for everybody. So because we've already accepted it. I don't know if we've shown that it's educational. We've accepted it as being educational for one whole year for the whole country. And I don't think it's going to be possible to say, like we can't do this and we can't offer online degrees. And I think ultimately it's going to lead to lowering college costs, which is a good thing. I mean, because college is inaccessible to a lot of people now. I mean, it's just crazy. So yeah, I would add that to the good things that have happened this year. So this is one of the highlights, is this move to online education. So yeah, that's very important. So Bernie's dream has come true.
Well, we were all forced to use this technology. It's been around for a long time. I've been using it a lot more for this type of thing and education and many other things and meetings, and it's here to stay. We've talked about that a few times.
Yeah, as you said, we've accepted it now. The biggest obstacles are preventing a monopolization or an oligopolization from big tech on these services and platforms. And that's, a big hurdle to overcome, I think, moving forward, just knowing how big, and how much of a stranglehold certain social media platforms have on specific methods of communication.
And the content that we see is determined algorithmically, and we're in an echo chamber all the time, exposed to our own biases because of the algorithm. So yeah, I think that is an important consideration.
Our choices reinforce what we're seeing. So instead of showing us new things by people that maybe we haven't been exposed to before, it just shows us the same old people, just every single damn thing they've got.
Yeah, so it lends itself to more indoctrination, to more brainwashing, definitely. I mean, there has to be, some watchdog out there to figure out, what we're going to do about the brainwashing aspects of education, because if everything becomes online, like Nick was saying, this can become monopolized, and it could be monopolized by big money, and then it becomes a brainwashing operation, right? So which is what's always, it's what's always been happening, and
I don't want my math classes presented by Oreos and this.
Well, we've seen in 2020 a number of alternate social media platforms have tried to take hold, whether that's conservative social media platforms or those dedicated specifically towards things. I saw one that is supposed to be the LinkedIn for graphic design and artistic creative types, which I thought was fascinating. But I also thought was fascinating on a different level, that on a LinkedIn style platform, a business predicated platform, we're trying to hook creatives up to job source. Fantastic concepts. I hope some of them survive 2021, but it's difficult in this day and age to fight against the Facebooks and the LinkedIns of the world. Facebook plus Instagram equals oligopoly, monopoly.
Well, and for us, it's hard to fight the urge to go on and engage, partially because, with so many organizers I see on this call and activists, Facebook was the platform and tool for organization and for espousing ideals for a good number of years, and it played a serious role in us passing legalization in 2018.
Yeah.
but yes, I do think people are moving away from that a little bit. And so I'm wondering what the next tool used for organization is going to be. Instagram actually kind of took that role with the all of the Black Lives Matters protests, because people could share infographics and videos so quickly and widely. So
Yeah.
Master, go ahead, Rachel, please.
Oh yeah. I think there's going to have to be an exit from Facebook eventually, because their policies on content, what content can be shared, has gotten a lot stricter, and they're censoring much more. We've been at SSDP, we've been having some trouble trying to get around the algorithms and have our content appear in front of the viewers of our members and our supporters, particularly because it is drug policy work. Right. So, for example, a couple months ago, we were partnering with another organization to do a documentary viewing on I'm forgetting the name of the documentary right now, but it was about the history of the movement to end the war on drugs, and Facebook would not let us share the post about the documentary. It was censored for being political, and this was just a documentary about the history of the movement. It wasn't anything too spicy or controversial, but we did face that censorship, and they're getting more and more strict all the time and changing their policies. And so I think eventually activists are going to have to exit Facebook. It's not going to be a model for organizing anymore.
Well, remember that we saw Mass Roots emerge last year, and that Mass Roots was an alternative to Facebook specifically for the cannabis industry. It failed. Pardon me. It failed, but that doesn't necessarily mean there wasn't interest in that platform. It could have been bad management, too big, too soon. There's lots of reasons why something that's a good idea doesn't necessarily come all the way to fruition. And it's possible that with this many people stepping up to the plate, somebody's going to hit a home run. And when they do, it's going to be important for the advocates that are really representing the people to be one of the first ones on that platform, because it's super easy for the big guys to just buy presence on any social media situation. They flip a checkbook open, and then all of a sudden they dominate the ad cycle. They have the best graphics, they've secured the best names, and everybody plays catch up for the rest of their lives. It's terrible.
Have you guys been on Clubhouse at all? Anybody?
I don't have an iPhone. Clubhouse is exclusive to that. So
That's the problem I have as well, but I've jumped in as other people were getting on, and there've been some really good conversations on there, and kind of see that being a growing platform for cannabis and activism and other similar topics. I need to figure out a way to get it on my Android or on my non-iPhone.
It'll be developed, I'm sure, before too long, especially if it's being recognized as you're seeing it as something that might be useful. I know there was one recently going around. I forgot what it was called, actually, maybe Cannabis or something like that.
Yeah,
Cannabis.
So I don't know. It didn't really seem to have that kind of response as you had, Mike. So one of these will probably win out.
I just wanted to say goodbye. I'm gonna have to hop off here. Rachel and I are gonna have to get off. But
Yeah.
It's great seeing Rick and Jamie and Dr. Rosania, Colin, everybody.
Jim.
Yeah.
Jim, Basore briefly, Debra.
our cartoonized versions of ourselves also on Debra's empty screen, right?
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Those packages.
2021.
For having me. I'm really pleased to be a guest. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate
Thank
all
you
your
very
work
much.
in
Appreciate
DC.
it.
Thanks, Nick. Safe travels
Your work
coming
and
home.
information. See you guys. Thanks for coming on.
To check out ssdp.org to find out their multi-year plan coming up, and ssdp.org/donate, I think,
Yes,
if you're
SSDP.
interested in how you can help the org.
Yes. Thank you.
That-
Yeah. ssdp.org/donate. Yep.
Good
Matching
organization.
funds till the 31st, right? Matching funds.
Matching funds till the 31st. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. All
Sign
right.
on, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that students.
Hey, Mike.
Policy.
Mike, I was just wondering what that app you said it was, Mike.
Oh, it's called Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
I mean, sort of like Google Hangouts, you have a room and you invite some people and then the conversation goes on. But I think there's a little bit of a twist to it. Again, I've never been on, but that's my general gist of what Clubhouse is.
Okay, I thought it was more of a similar platform to like the common like text thread kind of a thing, but that's cool.
That's my understanding too. People can get on and start a topic and invite people, make it visible to certain people, and then people jump in and can either be pre-selected to be able to speak or raise their hand to speak. And just seen some really good conversations going. It seems to be building up momentum.
Well, I think it's good for us to have dialogue-based social media, because Facebook is not typically dialogue-based social media. It's usually a statement-based. So you make a statement, and then sometimes people respond to it, but it's not a real-time feedback. Sometimes you're responding to things that were days old, and there's really no conversational value to it other than the general information and sometimes the inflammation of personalities, which I enjoy doing sometimes. But that sounds Clubhouse style. Sounds interesting.
What's weird is how Skype was kind of like what kind of use was going on was one of the predominant platforms, and then when the lockdowns happened and people got pushed into these things, Zoom positioned itself really well to be more accommodating for something like this.
I think Zoom is owned by Google, actually. So Google zapped up the Zoom company from, I think, whoever made it.
And then
Prevalent.
Skype ended up buying out Periscope. So it's all a big fucking umbrella shit, man. Pretty soon one company is going to own them all.
And then they're going to bust it up as an antitrust, and then it'll be chaotic again.
Yeah.
Gus, you're pointing your finger at the screen.
Because,
you got something on your mind.
Yeah, so that busting up, so the last time they did that, when they began busting up companies, it was during the dot-com era, back in the early 2000s. And they had this antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft, and that brought that popped the bubble. And, like this bubble that we have right now, I mean, this is quite a big, I think a much larger bubble, and it's all built around tech. I don't know if they're gonna be popping it anytime. And actually there's conversation that we have this new economy now that, it's kind of a fantasy economy, and they just want to leave it. And I think they may just leave it, and it's all built around the promise of tech, really. All these, outrageous overvaluations of all these tech companies, the Apples, the Googles. I mean, they just, in the stock market, it's just crazy how much money people are putting into these companies. And yes, and then you can come, the government could certainly come in with these antitrust deals and start breaking them all apart, but I don't know if that will be sustainable at the level of Wall Street. So, whatever.
I'm not sure how it would work with social media platforms either, because it's not really a service-based thing. It's like it's for people to go on and share their different opinions and such. But it's just crazy how they're censoring every little bit.
I remember at 14 and 15, when I was advertising things like the Compassion Chronicles and MICBD conferences and Michigan Normal and things like that, I would get stopped all the time by Facebook for content. They've shut down things. We've seen a lot of companies that were really very innocuous, who provided maybe legal services or were ancillary industries that never touched the plant, but because they were named in a provocative way, Facebook decided to chop them down like the cherry tree. So, this is an extension of the kind of repression we've seen in our industry for a long time. It just becomes more and more reprehensible as more and more states adopt pro-cannabis laws. I think that the hypocrisy is just crazy. Here's another one. I go to Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons has Canadian Wi-Fi. No matter where you are in America, Tim Hortons uses a .ca Wi-Fi. And guess what they don't allow on the Canadian Wi-Fi at Tim Hortons? Anything cannabis related. So I would go there with my tablet trying to do work, and then all of a sudden, I'm sorry, this website's blocked. It's my website. I'm the admin trying to log into my own website, and it says
like
not
that
on
right
our
now.
Property, brother.
I think there's some time for Canada to have gotten past that. Have you tried that?
Why Canada would block? Why would Canada block cannabis if they have legal cannabis?
I know what of Rick speaks. I've experienced that also. So that has been the case for sure. But I'm also wondering, maybe they finally
That could just be a Tim Hortons thing. It's possible that their particular retail locations had some kind of block on the Wi-Fi that they were given. I don't know if that's possible.
But is it because they're blocking you in the U.S. or is that the same thing in Canada that they also block cannabis conversation in Canada? Because what else are they going to be talking about in a Tim Hortons? Canada?
I mean, that's kind of national. With sled dogs and
other thing could you possibly be discussing?
You know, road salt is that the topic of conversation? Your new
know what, Mike?
I don't know, but
Mike, this year reports from hemp farmers, from small outdoor farmers, the few people that got to grow, maybe even commercially outdoors, all have reports of having great crops, huge plants. Do we have particularly like good conditions, or what went on this season?
Yeah, just generally speaking, both hemp and marijuana crops and food crops. It really just felt like Earth hit VPD this year. Like it was one of the best growing seasons that I can really remember as far as all the outdoor crops went.
Tony Shanaquet told us that she had 18-foot tall hemp plants on her property in northern Michigan this year. 18-foot tall.
I saw them, and they were not just tall; they were wide. They were incredible. I've never seen anything like that.
They
look like fir
kind
trees.
of like that graphic behind you. Yeah.
I want to see pictures of that.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah. Some were long, some were wide.
Yes.
So are you a hemp
look
grower?
like fir trees.
Are you a hemp grower, Mike?
No, I don't grow hemp, but I've been growing marijuana for it's my 25th season this year, so I've been doing it for a very long time here in Michigan.
Do you know people who grow outdoors?
Yeah.
How are they doing? I mean,
as far as
just production, how the plants are doing.
Good. I mean, this year is a great growing season right now. Most of the people that are growing outdoors are getting going in Michigan right now are kind of still, this year is better than last year. And with a lot of people are kind of learning how to navigate growing in Michigan. A lot of them haven't done it, this large of it and this big of a scale here in the state. So genetic selection, figuring out, making sure they have enough room for all the, processing. What are you going to do with it when it comes down? The actual, growing techniques during.
Is this state certified growing operations, or are they underground? So they're state. They're all legal, state certified.
Yeah, the people that I help, it goes from, people's own personal grow and caregiver grows, but also I'm working with a couple of large, licensed operations.
So how is the program? One of the things I haven't heard about lately is the Michigan, what is it? The MDAR, not the MDAR program, just the general program.
The MRTMA.
Yeah. How is that going? Because I haven't heard anything about the program lately. Supply, demand. Is there enough? Is there not enough?
Is Ryan still there, Jim, or did he split?
No, he had to split.
So on his show the other day, he talked about a recent kind of large price shift in the wholesale market, which will ultimately have an effect on things. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it has dropped a lot, and even in before license days, always when the outdoor comes in, the prices are going to drop because that's going to satisfy a lot of the supply, and people kind of anticipate that. And the same is true in regulated and licensed markets in other states. Typically starts to come back in January, February. A lot of times, like dispensaries, provisioning centers, they want to clear out their books at the end of the year too, so they stop buying. So a lot of this is expected, and then this probably slowdown with probably some COVID related slowdown also, but not too worried about it. It should bounce back, probably not all the way to where it was, but yeah, it seems like just a few months ago before the outdoor came down, 3,200 and up, 4,000 and up, and now I've seen very nice flower out there, 2,200 to 3,000 or so.
And more licensed places came online with harvests that were ready to be prepared for market. And
Mike, just so our viewers know, you're referring to a per pound price of cannabis. Just when you're talking about 2,200, 3,200, that's the number you're referencing.
How about the CBD THC ratio? Because I know that in the beginning of 2020, you couldn't find recreational that had a balance between CBD and THC. It was all very high THC. Actually, Jim knows this better than anybody, but it used to be that if you wanted to get a balance between CBD and THC, you had to go to medical. Can you find recreational now that's got, CBD and THC, 1-to-1? So
I think you're right. It is still, pretty rare to find. And if you do want that, I was going to say that just as you were saying it, actually, you have to go to medibles. I see people coming up with different ratios and, using concentrates that they're buying different, CBG distillate, Delta 8, all that.
Jim was trying to get in real quick. Jim, did you want to respond to Gus's question?
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, there was a long time before we saw a lot of ratioed CBD flowers, but there are some now. I've seen some. I know Home of Medicine has a Star Tonic right now available, so that's a great thing. But I think edibles are going to be better for somebody who's looking for CBD and THC because it's just better to eat an edible for your body. I also think finding sprays and edibles that have more of I guess less of a sugar content is a good thing to get hooked on, as opposed to a bunch of gummies that are 1-to-1 ratio CBD to THCs. So
yeah, but if you want to do recreational, you don't want something that's
you said medical, not medibles. You said
medical
program versus
recreational
on the legal, on the adult use side. And that and there is that what you were asking?
Well, I want to know recreational, and the reason why recreational is because if somebody wants to smoke recreationally, you're stuck, and you don't have a medical card. You're stuck with these high THC varieties, which I think are outrageous in terms of their THC content, and it's just crazy. So there is no option for recreational. That it's like you either have this very, very high THC varieties, in which case you have to mix. Okay, but that, that's not mixing. Yeah. And some people are okay with that, but if you want to actually have the experience.
You're talking about two things. You're talking about the problem with there not being the options, and then the problem with there not being the education. And people need that education to know how to go into cannabis for the first time. So that's something that we always have to just really focus on, is the medicinal side and how important it is to have that for the human body.
Well, even if it's not medicinal, when you're talking about a new smoker, giving them a 29% THC strain and then giving them a pre-roll, you're more than likely going to give them an experience that may not be optimal. If you have an option of having one, and again, THC numbers are not a good way to measure the potency of cannabis, but having options and having educated professionals behind the counter who can guide someone and someone who creates a purchase experience where the customer is comfortable enough to say, this is my first time. Those are very important in the industry, although they won't be present everywhere. I think most of my retailers that we know of.
You're putting people off. You're driving customers away if you're offering recreational that's pure THC. People are just going to run away from cannabis.
But what I'm saying is that there's a way to educate
excuse
people.
me, gentlemen. Maybe we can, direct the conversation a little bit better if we enter this information. Maybe you guys don't remember, but our good friend of our show and this show, if I'm not mistaken, DMAC, has some pre-rolls of a strain called Skunk Hole that I thought I had it up here. Maybe Berg still has his tube around, but I believe it's like a 2-to-1 CBD ratio. And it's specifically for people
for the introductory
coming on into the community. And we both tried it, and it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like what we look for because we're daily users. Mm-hmm. But it was like a good beginner product.
Excellent mention at that time. That's smart.
And that's great that's available. There's one other thing we all can do is grab some hemp, smokable hemp, or a high CBD strain flower and mix our own ratios with a THC strain.
Smokable hemp right here.
Yeah, and you can mix that with an indica strain or a sativa strain during the day, and have different effects and different ratios and hone in on your own, unique way of smoking. So
What strain was that you had, Roach? That CBD strain?
Oh yeah, and then like that's a whole nother thing, and it made me venture into trying to grow my own cannabis. It's called peach puree, and it's not a very high THC strain. I want to say it's like under 10% at maximum, but I just really enjoy the terpenes, and that's another thing I was going to say to anybody listening, and the cannabis kind of calls to you. Like, we have the endocannabinoid system as a part of our physiology. So I kind of feel that it's intuitive that when you're looking at the flower and you smell it and that is an appealing smell to you, then that's probably the strain that you need to try. That's like your senses telling you this is what we need. And I think
strongest of your five senses, as you know. Yeah.
So I don't know how conclusive we could be with that, but I can agree that I've experienced that, particularly when I was working directly with patients for many years at Third Coast. Got common positive support.
I mean, I'm only speaking from experience, because there isn't any really hard science. Hopefully there will be soon with the passage of.
Well, people talk about that with plant medicine, at large, I think. Kind of like when there's something that's really appealing, there's also something that maybe that particular individual system or that person's body wants or needs.
Yeah, cannabis is amazingly user-friendly and intuitive. So I think it could be just as simple as that, is like the things that you find appealing in certain cannabis strains are probably exactly the type of things that you need to treat your ailments. Or
I know
keep you
growers
level.
that can sniff a bag of cannabis and tell you whether there's any mold in it at all, just from a sniff of a bag. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's nodding because you've all had similar experiences. The nose knows when it comes to cannabis. It's why, and although I'm not a big fan of prepackaged cannabis, but when you take that sensory experience away from the purchase experience, people walk out of the store with money still in their pocket because they didn't fall in love with the cannabis because their nose didn't guide them to it.
Yeah.
If you let them sniff it in something more than a little teeny jar with a little magnifier on top that's got a couple of perforated holes there, if you give them a greater experience than that, you're likely to maximize your per ticket purchase, and you're also likely to get repeat business. I see Colin nodding his head. He's an experienced bud tender. He knows what I'm talking about. Those sensory experience, a sensory part of the process really does.
I was just thinking about like the last time, like it was a couple days before like the pandemic started and we like weren't able to let people smell anymore. So I was like thinking about how hard it must be now, like for like people, they have to go just buy like apps online or whatever. You should probably be prepared, going in. Usually most of them are. They can go inside in the lobby, but it's just, part of it was just like going in and smelling and like walking in and smelling the room.
So one of the things that we've noticed is during the pandemic, there's still been an increase in cannabis sales. Now, cannabis was already going this way. Whether it would have been like this or whether it would have been like this doesn't matter. It was always going to be going in an upward motion. But the fact is, even despite all of those restrictions on purchase experience, forcing people to buy things online who swore they'd never buy things online, or to look at an online menu, or to buy curbside without having that experience, they're still slaying it out there. They're still doing a great job. Jamie Lowell can tell you. I mean, shit, we've changed the way people have bought, and they still have responded pretty well.
But there's a lot of people that are getting over on people too, since people aren't seeing the medication before they buy it. Mm-hmm. We've had instances on the show where, viewers have chimed in and said that they've had horrible experience, that they've gotten totally two different products, that was online and what they got in their hand, and I also
and like we hooked them up. We traded them some quality extracts for the booty extracts just so that we could have it on deck.
Yeah, just to show it to people. And I just wanted to add too is, a lot of uneducated, cannabis users are out there searching for the highest THC. That's not always what makes the weed. What about the terpenes? What about the, everything else? I've had plenty of high THC strains that just taste like it wasn't impressive to me. Yeah, it got me high, but it wasn't that enjoyable.
There's lower THC
Yeah,
strains that hit the spot. That's why, recently we talked about the study that was published in JAMA just a few weeks ago on here, where in terms of concentrates and flower, the THC number doesn't seem to really offer that much information as far as effect.
I smoke a lot. I get burnt out on strains. It doesn't matter how good it is.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to smoke it anymore. I want something different.
Well, the fact is that the consuming public likes to have something they can use as a yardstick, some metric they can use to measure cannabis against each other, and then the retailing environment benefits from that as well. It allows them to take cannabis, which is probably essentially even, and charge more for some of it because it has a chemistry signature that has a little bit of a variance from the others. No matter how remarkably similar the strains are, it's got something that they can signify for extra bucks. So there's a reason for the system to not modify, but I think that the consumers are far more aware nowadays than they ever were before. And
as far as pre-packaging goes, and our company, the Botanical Company, we make sure these are with companies that have figured out, how to package, how to keep some level of consistency and expectation for their pre-rolls or for their eighths. Typically, they're prepackaged in eighths. So a lot of the branded stuff comes like that, and it's good. For example, Ryan's Redemption line. That said, a lot of our people really appreciate the deli style, meaning just watching the bud, come out of the jar, put onto the
being measured,
scale. Yeah,
weighed.
They put in there, and you're behind plexiglass and that type of thing. But notice that you open up the jar, there's a little bit of waftage, and people are able to still get that smell without kind of like crossing too much of a line.
Even through a mask, you can get the smell of cannabis. Yeah. I think we all know that.
At least the good ones.
I wouldn't buy any cannabis I can't smell. If I can't smell it, I'm not.
A lot of people would not, because that's the thing that does it for a lot of people. And not only that, but like the Redemption line, for example, and other branded prepackaged lines are going to now start typically sending loose flower package for the purpose of being able to demonstrate it.
Yeah, but display bud,
they're going to make their standard.
Bud. That's the right phrase. Yes, display bud.
But they're going to, make the expectation that when somebody gets something on a regular basis, it's going to be up to snuff, and that has been an issue for a lot of people. Yeah.
It could be a bait and switch, though, too. I know people have gone into reputable dispensaries and then claim they didn't get what they thought they purchased when they got it home.
And as soon as that happens for real, right? That's a problem. For the consumer,
Here's what we know. In this industry, early on, while we were still relying on caregiver cannabis, there were a lot of big players that brought in crops, and they had some cannabis for sale, and they really kind of held retailers at hostage. They demanded a really high price for what they got, and they took advantage of shortage in order to maximize profit. Now that shortage is gone and supply is equalized, the retailers that got screwed over by those guys, they remember it, and they will always remember that, and they will preferentially seek other sources. Same thing for the people like Berg and Roche are describing. When you get booth cannabis, especially in the D, there's too many other options. Why would you go back to that place? And also, those are the places that are not likely to survive after year 2 and year 3, because if you're screwing all your people in year 1 and there are lots of other options, you're not going back. So I think that those abuses of the system are always going to be prevalent. We see that too in the way that the cigarettes are vended and the way that alcohol is sold as well. But I think, man, reputation is so crucial in this industry, so much more than people actually give it credit for. I think people just want this to be a widget that you can buy and sell and trade without any heed to what it actually means for people. But in our world, reputation of cannabis is everything.
Yeah, and people who come into it with no skin in the game and no actual knowledge fail. they
They don't.
just fail, and we've seen it over and over and over again. You
And
can't
some
just look at it
respond-
as a business, you know.
And some, yeah, you have to know the nature of the plant, the culture
Yeah, or
that
you have to
surrounds it,
surround
the
yourself
history.
with the
yeah, you know.
proper people, at least.
So
You know?
I absolutely agree. And then some of them respond, instead of kind of incorporating that and learning about it and taking the, you know, the steps to bring in a team that might be able to
Right.
offer, you know, that end of the perspective, as did the company I'm with, gratefully.
Yeah, they know how
they-
to surround themselves with the proper authorities,
Sure.
the people who know what's going on. And that's the only way you're going to succeed. If you don't have that
Well-
knowledge yourself, you better have people surrounding you who do.
Sure. But instead of doing that, some of these places are trying to like gain more market share by using their influence, their large resources, creating these
Yeah,
associations.
they're treating it
trying to
like
change
a
policy to
like a party store or something, you know,
Yeah.
and it's not.
You know, Jamie and
You
I
know.
do columns for every week, every month for the Rolling Paper, which is a publication in Michigan that goes out to a lot of different retailers. And I wrote in my column for the month of January that you have to let these guys go. There are going to be failures in 2021. There are going to be
They will
maybe even
fail.
some big company failures in 2021.
Yeah.
What we don't need to do is we don't need to attack the unregulated market. We don't need to bitch about local communities not creating laws that are favorable. We don't need to bitch about the Marijuana Regulatory Association agency not doing what they're supposed to do. If you have a bad business model, it doesn't matter how many people walk through your door,
Right.
you are going to fail.
That's
And in
right.
2020, it was very difficult for companies to fail. 2021, there will be some, and we need to let them go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The superior establishments will survive.
Look at Jamie's awesome screen. Oh, he
Great
blanked out.
reflective.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna, no, God damn it. I'm
There it
gonna, I'm taking this operation inside. It'll be
I
much,
see it now.
much less cool looking, but I'll
Oh,
be
he's
slightly
cold.
warmer at this point.
It's like a halo. Did you unzip your pants or something? It was a halo.
No, just a
Yeah,
natural
that is
halo, just
creepy.
showing up a little bit under the conditions. That's all.
You look demonic.
It's his
at this point.
aura, not a halo. It's his
Yeah.
aura.
I'm gonna have to say
He's your
goodbye
new
at
guru.
5:30. So I want to wish you all a happy new year. 2021, I really hope it's a lot better than 2020.
It will be.
It's been,
Man, thank you very much for coming on, Gus. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's
Offering up your
awesome.
thoughts and
Gus.
everything. It's
Always
really
appreciate
much
it.
appreciated. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yep. Professor Rosania always offers a great perspective. I've been invited to speak at Green Wolverine, which is a business group at the University of Michigan, and the professor's almost always on the speaking list too. So good. So good. And he's been on our show many times. So the
Yeah, he's a pretty
conversation
cool
we had
guy.
last time was with Mars was just amazing. Go ahead, Roach.
I was saying he was a pretty good guy. I like that guy.
Yeah. We talked last time. If you happen to check out Jazz Cabbage on YouTube, look for the episode with him where we talked about cannabis on Mars. It's very intriguing, the concept of musk tunnels, where Elon would drop these gigantic drills to drill large holes into the Martian structure so that we could actually seal them off and live there safe from meteorites and radiation and other things that would plague the surface, control it from temperature perspective, control it even from an atmosphere perspective. And part of that would be cultivating cannabis, because you could synthesize from cannabis all the different ingredients you would need to support life, provided you had enough water. And now that we believe that there's water available on Mars to be refined, that sort of solved that problem. So intriguing stuff.
Problem
Check that out,
solved.
folks. Check that out, folks. It's a great broadcast.
Send me some of that smoke.
More
when you
people are
go
going to get
Yelp.
interested in the space program after hearing that.
Well, you know,
Right.
when we talk about
I'm
it,
not going in no missile nowhere.
it's probably
No,
I'm probably
no.
aged out of the astronaut world myself. I think it's probably not going to
Yeah,
happen to a guy of
not
my
for
years.
me.
Deborah,
I'll
we
watch
wouldn't
and
be able to
wave.
survive here without you. You got to stay.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
but I
Can't
mean, you
afford
know,
to send you off.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
too
think-
scared to even make a short excursion and back. I'm not going up that high.
Yeah, no.
Outside
You know what?
of
I'd love
your-
to do ballooning one of these days. I'd love to do a balloon ascension and go up there.
I would
but
do that. I would
that-
do that.
That would be fun. I think I need to do that first before I start talking
But you're
about
staying in the
SpaceX ride.
atmosphere, dude. It's not, going
I
to
know.
Mars and the moon.
But I want to. I want to walk before I run. I'm going to scale it up a
But
little.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That I can do. But
And
shoot me out way out in the middle of nowhere and shit. Just hell no.
Mike, Jim, any of you guys have you been ballooning before?
No, but I would do like balloon and a gravitron, like you said, just baby steps
Yeah.
towards getting into space.
Yeah, that's all I would do. I did. I bungee jumped. So
Ima-
Oh, really?
Imagine going to outer space looking for weed. That'd be awesome.
No, I would take my weed with me. I'm not going into space without my weed. Come on.
I don't think I could do it. It's too. I'd get too claustrophobic.
I need some of that Martian weed.
You find the weed though, anywhere you go, you find the people. It's just magic, isn't it?
Oh,
You
yeah.
just know.
I mean, that might be a tough on the space station. You're like hitting up the Russian guy. Hey, comrade, you got a lid for a friend? That might be a
Funny
tough.
how that works.
Yeah, I don't know.
And send me some of that Martian bud, man. I'll smoke it.
Yeah, Martian
that's it.
Cincy.
I think they just lick batteries in order to get high out in the space station or something. Who knows?
Yeah, that won't work. I'm not licking no damn batteries. That's what the
Diesel.
kind of shit that Colin's into.
Right.
I already know how to get into space.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know
Colin.
that. Yeah, it's purple and gold, right?
If you speak it, NASA will block that method. Don't tell anybody.
Colin's all like,
I've been there too, but not as intense as that, I must say.
I don't know. Make friends with Elon Musk. He's probably gonna have a special private trunk or two in the cargo hold because he's Elon. So.
He has to make friends with me. I'm not reaching
He's
out.
got to get
Fuck
past
yeah,
Colin.
Colin. You be that guy. Yeah.
He's like, Colin's like, I've been to space 3 times this year.
That's right. Entheogenic substances, bitch. I don't need no rocket. Ha ha.
See, that I'll do too. So,
That's
but
excellent.
actually being shot up out in the middle of nowhere now, the outer limits.
So, I mean, sometimes the future holds some things that we'd like to see, but maybe just not for ourselves. Well, like political office. We saw a lot of people this year, progressives in the Democratic Party, achieve some offices in politics. I saw some of them seem to be resisting Nancy Pelosi's reappointment as a Speaker of the House. I think that they may be trying to fight an uphill battle because I'm pretty sure she's enshrined in that role. But, I mean, every time you introduce new blood into some place, there's a little feeling out of what the responsibilities are in there.
I think it's like
Josh.
Oh, what happened there?
Josh in
Somebody
the chat
just
just
disappeared.
mentioned.
my phone fell.
Colin fell.
Hang on, Berg, what do you got?
No, I said Josh in the chat was talking about zero gravity. Imagine smoking weed, zero gravity.
That'd be crazy. Would it go into your lungs? Could you breathe it in?
So you'd exhale, and it would just sort of sit there, and then you would. I
Re-inhale
presume
it
maybe
again.
get it back
That would be
in.
awesome. You just
So
keep
you could
inhaling
like
the
just
same
French
perpetually
inhale like a
swim in
bitch,
your
man.
smoke.
Maybe it has to be done like with a volcano or something. You get a big bag of smoke. That would work.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
just keep inhaling the same hit, like your own personal shotgun. You don't need another person.
Maybe you
Just hover-
need a bag to exhale into then, so you don't keep on getting stale smoke. There we go.
Yeah.
They call it the Berg unit. You got to develop this. That's right.
It's strictly experimental at this point in time, but
We'll sell it
with
to Elon.
Berg in it is experimental.
Yeah. Ask her not to be like, hey, you got a Berg unit I can loan? Yeah.
You guys seen medicated space ice cream? Has anybody done that yet?
I have.
Yeah.
I've had that space ice cream. Freeze dried essentially.
Love it. Yeah.
It's very
I love
flavorful.
I got
too.
these.
where do you get it?
Captain Kirk gave me mine.
Camping
Oh.
outlets.
Was it medicated?
Oh,
It
like
was
the Army
Miz
Navy
was,
store?
yeah.
No way.
Making tons of like that type of stuff, many different foods infused in Oklahoma right now.
Yeah. They've taken this to a new art with the infused stuff. Remember back in the day when you could taste it and stuff? It's not like that anymore.
Colin, what were you going to say, my friend?
Oh, I got these like vegan chicken nugget things. They're like chicken nuggets from space, or they like go into space or something.
What?
They've been to space.
Vegan
And they
chicken
taste
nuggets that have
disgusting.
been
Just
to
like-
space?
You mean it's like a
Let me see
rotisserie
what they
chicken
look
from
like.
Myers?
I'd rather eat a
Mars.
meteorite.
Yeah.
No, they're definitely
They're
like
They
tofu.
cooked it with the
I think
radiation.
they look kind of like tofu, like when you eat it. Like,
Oh, that's worse.
But-
I can't stand that.
it tastes exactly like McDonald's chicken nugget without the stomach ache. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
believe it.
right.
I don't.
No, I'm
believe it.
serious.
Sorry.
They're really good too.
Yeah,
I mean, all the
you're right.
chemicals they had to add on there to
But-
make it taste like a
Pandemic.
McNugget. Oh my
No,
god!
honey mustard
Sorry.
or barbecue
Sorry, I'm
sauce.
not buying
I
that.
take medicated honey. is what I do,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I put it on them, and I was just like,
I used to always
I
get
don't know,
my
it's like
my
a
nuggets and
glaze,
honey.
and I
Hell yeah,
eat
they,
'em.
McDonald's used to give you a little honey. Do they
Yeah,
still do
McDonald's
that?
used to give me a little pack of honey, and that was like my
Yeah.
favorite sauce.
The
It was like
fries are
better
good
than
in
the
there
sweet and
too.
sour from McDonald's and the
Yeah.
barbecue. And I
The
always had the
salt one.
honey, and that's what it
Yeah.
reminds me of.
Vegan chicken
Hell yeah, but not the vegan chicken
They're
tart.
from
The honey
space
2020
too.
was a
and
weird
the
year.
But
nuggets, but not the
it's
vegan
good.
part.
Good and good for you.
They're called nugs with 2 G's.
They brought
Say it again, please.
Nugs with
Nugs.
2 G's.
Nugs with 2 G's.
No,
No wonder you bought them.
And
Anybody tell Pony Boy that someone's
Did they
stepping on
come
his
in- they
line,
come in
man?
Happy
That's
Meal,
wrong.
right?
Reminds me of a chub with 2 B's.
My nuggets.
exactly, that's what you should be
Oh
the
Lord.
spokesperson for
Pony
it.
Boy
What
for
toy
Los
comes with
Marijuanos
them?
was one of the most memorable interviews, in my opinion, for
Definitely.
Medical Mondays 2020 lineup. Wonderful guy. He talked about OG Eddie Lepp, and he also had some very harsh words for some people in the cannabis industry that may have been misrepresenting themselves, and he never is one to hold back, and he's also one to kind of dominate a conversation.
Who
So,
was
Oh
it?
yeah.
Pony Boy is
Pony
the
Boy.
local leader of
Los
Los Marijuanos.
Los Marijuanos.
Hey, one
It's a
thing
good
I wanted to bring up though before we end, we got a couple minutes. Is there are some bills that passed in lame duck. Obviously, we
Yeah.
believe dodged a bullet in terms of what we've talked about here and elsewhere. The possibility that the bill to combine the commercial licenses might take place under the lame duck scenario. We were kind of concerned about that. That so far seems to be true that that's going to be moved in the next session. There was potentially a good, and I don't know a lot about them. What I do know is that the Chief Justice, McCormick, set up she didn't like seeing all of the incarcerations of many nonviolent, low-level, crimes, and thought that there should be better policy along those lines, and set up a task force to look at it. And that information was revealed, and it resulted in the legislature, passing a new law. That has to be signed by the governor, but apparently that might result in. I think about Mike O'File, who was on here, who sat in jail before even being in front of a judge wasn't even convicted. He was in jail for several months. We got
Bound
hurt
over.
in this situation, yeah.
Dude, horrible.
So maybe 2021 has more of that in store.
And we have a new Supreme Court justice on the court, and it's first time in a long time where it's actually Democratic leaning. Maybe we'll hear some of those older laws that the legislature created get heard again.
And that's of course referring to the state Supreme Court, because the federal Supreme Court actually, it looks like it's dominated by conservatives. So.
Yeah, the state Supreme Court, that is.
At least didn't take anything so politically charged from their appointment by Trump as to accommodate him, I think, in the way that he.
Yeah, I know he was shocked by that, and he was really pissed because he felt he had them in his pocket. A true conservative would not be a Trump supporter. I mean, if you talk to people who are Republicans, or just real conservative Republicans, like old school Republicans, they're not. They wouldn't be following this crazy conspiracy weirdness of him.
No, this Twitter
election.
tirade certainly is not a respectable way to treat.
Nobody sane is falling for that. I mean, even somebody that he put in a lifetime appointment is not going to sully themselves in that manner.
I mentioned earlier, I think maybe on Medical Mondays, that party loyalty in America runs deeper than religious loyalty in a lot of people. And what you're seeing is folks that say things like, I'll never vote for a fucking Democrat. Or people will say, I'll never vote for a fucking
I'd rather
Republican.
be Russian than Democrat.
That's correct.
Rather be red than dead.
That's right. So when you talk about that kind of a commitment to something, that means you're ignoring anybody's personality, you're ignoring anybody's policy. All you're paying attention to is the party designation. That's dangerous, because then guys like Trump get in, right? I mean, we had a horrible candidate from the Democratic Party, so people said, I will never vote for her as a person. But the loyalty that people had, 70 million, right, Jamie? 70 million people voted for Trump, something like that?
Yeah, but I think
God.
Trump has assumed that
Well,
his
plus-
appointees would have some type of loyalty to him,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they did not. So
They
far, they
owed
have not.
him because he put him on the thing. I'm going to call you in the middle of the night, and you're going to do whatever I tell you to do.
Right.
You know,
But
and in
that's not what happened.
2016, he got like 63 million votes or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So
Did
the
you
fact
see,
is, we're a divided
Dana
nation.
Nessel's tweet
A lot of people
over the
voted for him
weekend?
too.
Yeah, talk
Colin.
about that, Colin. Please. I did.
It was funny. It said like can't a Midwest AG not be woken up or sleep in on a Sunday morning without being tweeted by waking up to be tweeted by Donald Trump. Oh wait, on January 20th, I can.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That
It was
must be
pretty funny.
so surreal, you know.
Yeah, she had a couple of good ones actually in the midst of all that stuff.
Well, and he's taken shots, and she mentioned either in her tweet or in a story I read about that tweet, he's gone after Jocelyn Benson, our Secretary of State. He's definitely gone after that woman from Michigan, our Governor
Those
Gretchen
women.
Whitmer. Which as soon as he did it, sparked a whole line of T-shirts supporting that woman, and I mean, made somebody a whole lot of money. Donald Trump's tirades, if you treat them right, they can be marketable, I guess. But the fact is, he's absolutely convinced that the Democrat-led states are just screwing everything up, and that if it was all just Republican, it would be fine. The fact is, Michael Flynn, who he pardoned, is now advocating martial law in order to maintain a Trump presidency for 4 more years. Those voices, the fact that they even get media, that's scary as fuck. That guy.
There's also some Republican congressman is suing Mike Pence to block some sort of ceremony from happening.
Yep.
Well,
We didn't talk about the national explosion on Christmas Day either. So.
Didn't someone say that they're going to have a virtual inauguration for him too?
Yes. They had like
What?
hundreds of thousands of people signed up online to attend this virtual inauguration for the second presidency of the United States.
Wow.
I did see. Go ahead, Bert.
There's so many Trump supporters that still believe that he's going to be our president. It blows my mind.
What is wrong in people's brains that I don't understand? If people cannot see facts and reality, I don't understand.
He was just quoted the other day. He said, "This is a problem the next administration is going to have to sort out." So when I heard him say that, you know,
he knows they're using this to raise money. He's using this to raise money and power for himself.
He's still getting.
But there's all these people who believe it. You know, but he knows.
Look at the people that contribute to these mega churches, the Joel Osteens of the world. Sometimes a good marketing scheme will get people to part with their dollars. The reason that you still get calls about people who have said that you've won the lottery in Rwanda and all you have to do is just give them your bank account number so they can deposit the funds. The reason they still do that is because people fall for that shit. A good line of bullshit, Americans will suck it right up.
Yeah, I saw a documentary on that. They have like phone banks in countries that call people, just keep calling people in the U.S. and people are sending them money.
If you get 1/10 of 1%, that's still something.
Yeah,
you know, more than you had before. It's atrocious. And the fact is, we know that these things are going on, and I don't know what the mechanism by which we stop it, but there has to be one. There has to be one. Russian hacking. We never talked about Russian hacking into the United States, which apparently has been going on all of 2020, and continues to go forward right now. And yet, even in the overwhelming evidence that Russians are responsible for it, President Trump continues to maintain, no, not Russia, China. I know. Yep. So he's still trying to cover for his buddy Vlad, pulling troops out of places where Vladimir would like troops to not be, breaking alliances with people that we've had for decades, mystifying his generals by making military decisions without consulting them, or directly going in opposite of their recommendations. The 4 years that we've had of him on an international level have been terrible. Remember when he called North Korean dictator, the little rocket man, and then all of a sudden was trying to cozy up to the guy, and then the love letters from Xi from China. I mean,
He didn't want to go to the U.S. Military cemetery in France during a historical time of
I don't want to go see
World
those
War II
losers.
because it was raining, and he called them suckers and losers as his
Suckers and losers, because he doesn't go out in the rain. So
he sat in a room surrounded by generals and called them all losers because they hadn't won the war in Afghanistan. Which, I mean, first of all, it's a generational long conflict. Second of all, historically, Afghanistan is an unwinnable territory. No one's ever been able to succeed and hold it since the Mongols. So the fact is, they're an independent people. Help them become that. So, there are just so many ways in which we'll have better leadership when we start letting the experts make decisions instead of people tweeting from the toilet national security violations
You know what?
at 2:30
I
in the
think
morning.
LBJ probably would have been tweeting from the toilet too, because didn't LBJ used to have meetings on the toilet? I remember reading that about that.
It's a weird factoid that you would know. I don't know why.
Mr. Hankey?
I do know that.
Okay.
I promise you, Google it and you'll see.
Jazz Cabbage. Hey, by the way, we were told by a friend of mine that Jazz Cabbage Cafe was mentioned on the Bob and Tom radio show. Bob and Tom's a national, probably international because it goes to Canada, internationally broadcast show. Syndicated all over the place. It's a morning radio program. They do 4 hours of broadcasting. And one of the lead guys, Bob, or one of them, said that his son listens to that Jazz Lettuce show to learn about cannabis. So, I mean, they got the name wrong, but it's all about us.
That was very cool to hear. Hey, why not? That was very cool.
Did you capture it for a promo?
I did not hear it myself. I was told by one of my friends that it was that, and I totally believe it. So, because I choose to, yes. I completely accept.
Be able to recover it.
Yeah. Love it. Mike Fisher, thanks for joining our broadcast today. We don't normally get people to hang out for the whole 2 hours like you did. That was a good studly move. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Nice end of the year. Just hang out and talk about this stuff and reflect. I think that worked out pretty well. Some good people through here. It's always cool to see Gus on here, obviously, and Nick brought on the current director of Students for Central Drug Policy, so that was definitely pretty cool.
Yep, and Jim had Ryan Basore in his background, kind of haunting him over his shoulder.
Worked out quite well too.
Creepily. Yep, but
both Roche and Berg from Medical Mondays are on, and all good stuff. And Mike's going to join us, periodically and talk about cultivation stuff from home approaches to what's going on with the industry and stuff like that. So looking forward to that.
We had a visit from the singing group Debra and the Packages, which is always nice. It's
I'm here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, Mike, if people wanted to communicate with you,
warming up for Gladys Knight and the Pips. Yeah.
Don't say the Pips. No, that's not a flattering comment to make about an image of yourself, sir. Mike, if people wanted to know more about you and what you do and how they can get a hold of you, how would they do that?
If you want to email me at Fisher, FISHER @overgrowconsulting.com. Any questions?
Fantastic.
Happy to help people. It's important for me to make it easier for people to be growing at home, and everyone should, we in the years to come, there's a lot we stand to lose as far as that goes. And, and Gus was talking about specific formulations that might be better from one person to another, for example. And, in other states, I feel like strains got lost for the kind of pressures that were mentioned on this show. So it's very important for me to help people on that level, but I do also help licensed operations get going and troubleshoot things while they're, after they've gotten up and running, and can help people with a variety of things. So any questions about your own grow or your cannabis business, please reach out.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Right on. Thanks a lot, man.
Jim, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to leave us with before we wrap the show?
No, I'm, happy New Year, everybody, and, have a safe one. We're going to have a whole new year coming up, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and nothing stops. We just keep going.
Colin, how about you, sir? You have any closing wishes you'd like to impart upon the new year?
I don't really have any have those, I don't think. Look forward to the Entheo show in the new year. It comes out January 8th.
How can people tune into that?
We'll have like a website and a YouTube channel up, and Facebook, Instagram up in the next week or so. So
if people wanted to take a look at your Facebook, they would probably be able to find the information from that as soon as it comes available, right?
Yep, and also Decriminalize Nature Michigan. That website will be up on January 1st. So.
And they have a Facebook page too, where that information is as well. Yeah.
So
other than that, I don't really have any ideas, so or profound wisdom to give to anyone.
Your
today.
Presence is profound. Berg, Roche, Medical Mondays has been a blast. I've really enjoyed 2020 hanging out with you guys on Monday night. It's a 9 to 11 p.m. show broadcast on YouTube. Oh, so much fun. It's a smoking, swearing kind of a show, and that's fun to do. Politics takes a backseat to more important issues sometimes, but there's been really no topic that's off the table. I mean, we've talked about racial issues, we've talked about political issues, we've talked about people getting screwed in the industry, we've talked about some of our heroes. John Sinclair guested on your show. What are your final thoughts for today?
I don't know, man. We just got to stay positive. Like, this is a tough time, but as long as we stick together, keep on the path that we've been on, which is that of community and education and information, it's only a matter of time. And that's my high cryptic statement for 2020.
It's only a matter of time, undefined.
No, I just want to add, I just hope more and more people get their head up out of their asses, and realize, there's a lot more out there than just what they're saying on the news. Do your own research. And anybody want to check out Medical Mondays on Monday nights, 9 p.m., you can just type in medicalmondayspodcast.com and it'll take you directly to our YouTube channel, even though I'm not allowed to post that link on Facebook or on Instagram because they shadow banned them. They will not let me post that URL. But yeah, just search first Medical Mondays Podcast and you'll find us.
Ooh.
Thanks for always inviting us on here to discuss more issues and everything.
It's been good. I love the additional dialogue. It's always great. Deb, how about yourself? What do you got?
Just Happy New Year, everybody, and I agree with Berg. If we just kind of chill and hang together, everything's going to be fine. We're all going to get through this, and just Happy New Year. That's this week, and we're going to roll into 2021. I think it's going to be shit show in the beginning, and then it's slowly going to chill out. We're going to have a way better year by summertime.
Good thought. I run my mouth a lot, but this is really Jamie's show. Jazz Cabbage Cafe is Jay keeps it afloat. He makes the plans for the future. He does a lot of things, and he deserves the last word on 2020. Happy New Year, my best friend Jamie Lowell.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. And I wouldn't do it without having this group of people consistently wanting to come on and have these conversations and get this information on record. And it's just going to get better from here. I'm looking forward to this show getting better, and including tackling a lot of new opportunities and projects next year. I hope everybody has a really happy New Year. Again, I'm aware that there's been a lot of tragedy this last year too, and I can't lose sight of that. It's happened in numbers much greater than the things that we've historically have seen, obviously, and such a tremendous misfire and how it was handled, and just how incredibly out of control it got, and it's horribly sad. But You know, nonetheless, there's a lot of great things going on next year, including getting over all this stuff and getting back to whatever resemblance of normalcy it will create, it'll culminate in. It's not going to be exactly like it was, I don't think, but we'll be functioning again at some point toward the end of next year if everything goes well. I didn't necessarily like hearing everything that Gus had to say about the vaccine.
Yeah.
I expected him to kind of reassure
Let's
us.
have a disclaimer here, you know. Gus's opinions are Gus's opinions. Do not apply to everyone else.
I mean, but is he wrong though?
He's not wrong.
Well, he is not wrong, but
you know, I don't know if he's right or wrong, but it's just, you know, he kind of puts everything. I mean, Gus is a good guy, and I know he's real knowledgeable.
He didn't say that anything bad was going to happen. He just said that this is all coming out with very limited information, and that's the thing.
Limited information, yeah. Well,
this is what I wanted to say earlier when you guys were going, but you know, everybody was making really good statements. I don't want to break the flow, but Pfizer licensed their vaccine formula to Moderna, and Moderna got it up and running and did the clinical tests. And based on Moderna's tests, Pfizer said that they were going to have the same efficacy. And their actual test didn't come in until like 3 weeks later.
Yeah. 3 weeks later,
So
right?
they were,
and we still don't know.
Everybody's just been banking on a maybe.
Yeah, and we still don't know about this new strain of virus either. I mean,
yeah, I don't know much about it.
Hours ago, I mean, Colorado has the first case of it, the mutated virus in Colorado. It was found today. So.
Yeah, this vaccine may not work on it. It may require a tweak. It may require something that.
Yeah, they have to change the flu vaccine every year. They have to tweak it every year because things mutate. So we might have already mutated, and when they're on to the next, who knows? I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But
new technology, new ground. It's all new.
Wear a mask. Wash your hands.
More.
Keep a
I'm still
reasonable
going to get the
distance.
vaccine because there's going to be enough people before me who get it. I'll be able to see if there's any adverse, you know.
It'll be at least like 4 months in, right?
Yeah, like Dave. My husband will get it way before me because he's a teacher, so he'll get it first. So I'll be, you know, doing clinical studies over here on Dave to see what's going on.
Guys, it's time to end the show. We appreciate everybody coming on. Jamie, go ahead. Last words.
No, we derail a little bit, but all fun. Went in the middle of my very deep and moving and important.
Oh yeah, sorry, we didn't show enough roadwork.
It's okay. But anyway, happy New Year, everybody. That's no. It's all good, and I had a great time this year doing this show. I'm happy that we went to this video format so easily, can bring people in and out of it and have these conversations, and participating in many shows now this way. And as Roach brought up last night, there's this community of podcasts that are, you know, tackling this issue in many different ways, and it's all good. We're all part of this family, getting this information out, and we'll continue doing it next year. And happy New Year, everybody! Thanks everybody for coming on today. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Yes.
See you guys.
Happy.